A firefighting dilemma in Kent County. Tuesday's big fire in Cheswold is shining a bright light on a serious public hazard in the town's historic section. Good evening, I'm Alice Davis.
And I'm Paul Butler. This is WBOC News at 7 o'clock. Well, that fire that destroyed this home on New Street in what Cheswold calls Old Town. Everyone living there escaped unhurt. However, 3 of their dogs did die in the fire. Now, firefighters face challenges getting water to fight the flames. Houses use well water in that part of Cheswold. That means there are no other water lines under the new street. As WBOC's Kent County Bureau Chief Mike Chesney reports, no water lines means no fire hydrants.
Tuesday's fire was devastating to Carol Acuff.
My whole house is gone. I never thought this would ever happen to me.
And it was challenging for firefighters.
The problem is we have no hydrants. The firefighters do a great job. They get here, but they have to lay a line that's way down the street to get a hydrant.
Cheswold Police Chief Chris Workman says that hydrant was nearly a fifth of a mile away from Acuff's home. That's a long distance, and to show you just how far it is, we're gonna have to speed things up a bit. We're still not there. Not yet. Almost. Okay. After all of that, we finally arrived at the hydrant and the engine attached to it. Now, the hydrant issue popped up during a different fire last year, just a short distance from the scene of Tuesday's fire. And Cheswold's Secretary-Treasurer Sam Callender knows the lack of hydrants in Old Town is a very real problem and is seeking a federal grant to study the costs of putting them there.
It's going to be incredibly expensive. I don't know exactly how much it costs, but it's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then even once the engineering study is done, most of the grants that we could get for the infrastructure, we would have to submit matching funds. We don't have them.
Callender says Cheswold's overall annual budget is only $600,000 in the first place. The fire department agrees the hydrant problem is serious, but past Chief Steve Martin says firefighters can work around it to an extent.
Since we used to be a non-hydrant district at all, we had none. We carry 1,000 gallons of water on each piece of apparatus, so we have a good start to make on the fire.
Martin says 1,000 gallons is about 10 minutes of water, giving them time to lay a line to a faraway hydrant, making a fire like Tuesday's handleable.
But if this happened in the middle of the night and there was a 50-mile-an-hour wind, it could very well be a problem where it would take multiple houses because it just takes so much water.
That was Kent County Bureau Chief Mike Chesney reporting now. Callender says she's really hoping and working to see if there's a way to solve this safety issue. The town has written letters to state lawmakers for help, but for now, the problem remains, and it looks like it will continue to remain a long time coming. Forrest Gump once told us, you never know what you'll get in a box of chocolates. But for a Dover woman, it was a box of CDs that held something she didn't expect. WBOC's Kent County Bureau Chief Mike Chesney reports.
Alabama Christmas.
A box of CDs.
A few records just thrown in there.
That's all Lisa Fennington thought she was buying.
Garth Brooks caught my eye.
She bought the box through an online yard sale.
We sorted through it, cleaned up what was in there, and in the bottom of the box was the little book.
A book with the words, "My Life in the Service" on its worn cover.
We start looking through it and realized that it actually was a journal from, 1941.
Written by a man she'd never heard of before.
Lawrence R. Hannah. It was very interesting to read just the different things that he wrote. Kind of stuck. He seems to be a very brave person.
Lisa learned a lot about Lawrence's life.
He's from Maryland, from Baltimore. He started out at $21 per month.
And got a first-hand account of one of the most important moments of the 20th century.
A date which will live in infamy.
An account probably best described as nonchalant.
He put December 20th, 1941. Nothing of interest happened from Thanksgiving up until now. Spent a very swell birthday on December 5th. I was 24 years old. On December 8th, 1941, Monday, the United States declared war on Japan, and the furlough that I had coming up for Christmas was shot to hell.
Lisa was fascinated.
I am.
She knew she had to get the book back to Lawrence's family.
I just couldn't bring myself to just throw it away. It's somebody's life.
After she couldn't get back in contact with the guy she bought the box from, she reached out to WBOC.
I'd like to find some family members that was related to him I think that would be something very nice to pass down.
We met up earlier this month, and Lisa gave us what information she could to work with.
Serial number?
Date he was born, date he joined the Army.
July 16th, 1941.
And so our hunt began for a man who would be 96 years old right now. We couldn't find an obituary. We tracked down Army records, old phone book entries, property deeds, and eventually, Lawrence's will and estate information. The documents told us he'd passed away in 1997 and gave us the names Richard and Jeannie Bear. Hi, I'm trying to reach Richard. Lawrence's nephew and his wife, who it turned out live in Bridgeville. I told them about Lisa, the box, and the book.
We said, maybe that's the book that we had been looking for. Accidentally, I think it was put into a box.
And sold in an estate sale.
We would have never just trashed, my life in the service because he was such a favorite, in the family.
We set up a time for Lisa to meet Jeannie and return the book.
I'm Lisa.
I'm Jeannie.
And in no time, they were chatting like old friends. Jeannie shared pictures.
This was Larry when he was in the service.
And memories of the man she called Larry.
Larry was a outgoing, compassionate, loving individual. He was very, very, very artistic, very talented.
She helped Lisa better know a man she'd only met through his words.
He was an entertainer.
He wrote when he came back, he went and saw Tommy Dorsey.
Yes.
And, a couple different performers in there.
For Lisa, it was a meeting she'd never forget.
There's a closure. I feel like I even know more about this man that I've personally never met. I feel like he found his way home. It's where it needs to be.
I'm really glad that you brought this back.
And for Jeannie, getting the book back was as pleasant and unexpected a surprise as Lisa had had when she found the book in the first place.
I think the fact that Lisa cared enough, to want to find the family that may have had the book, it sort of bonds us together.
A bond Larry'd be glad to know he helped create. Mike Chesney, WBOC News.
Now, Jeannie plans to use the book as part of a family history album she is making for her two daughters, who she says were very attached, to their Uncle Larry. Delaware is known for not having a sales tax. It's often called home of tax-free shopping, but some say that moniker is misleading.
They call the first state's gross receipts tax a hidden sales tax. Gross receipts is a tax on a business' total gross revenue, regardless of source. WBOC's Kent County Bureau Chief Mike Chesney explains why it gets that hidden sales tax label and what impact it has on you as a consumer.
You'll never see the words gross receipts tax on a receipt.
53.64 is your change. Have a good day.
But Gerald Hocker says that doesn't mean you're not paying it.
The average consumer, they really don't realize what they're paying.
Hocker owns supermarkets near Bethany Beach.
And decided they wanted to stay where they were.
The type of store that is constantly dealing with owing the state gross receipts tax. He's also the Republican state senator for the area, and Hocker, along with the statewide GOP, wants to see Delaware do away with gross receipts tax.
It's a hidden tax, and I'm against all hidden taxes. People should know exactly what they're paying.
Now, legally, a business can't officially charge a customer for the gross receipts tax on an item like it could a sales tax, but it can build the tax into the on-the-shelf price of an item.
I think he'll say the same thing I said.
Rich Heffron with the State Chamber of Commerce says that, in effect, means it's hidden.
You can't argue it's not. Obviously it is. The seller is going to determine what's going to be passed on. You're not really going to know. All you're going to know is the price that you pay.
Passing it on is exactly what Hocker says Delaware businesses are doing.
If you don't build it in and you don't pass expenses on, you don't stay in business.
Delaware advertises itself as the home of tax-free shopping. There are signs like this one all over the place, and lots of people from surrounding states come here specifically to shop. So we went and spoke with people in Maryland. Have you ever heard of Delaware's gross receipts tax?
Shockingly, no.
No, sir.
No. No.
So they had no idea it might be hiding in the prices they pay when they come across the state line to shop. But the director of the Delaware Division of Revenue, Patrick Carter, says not that many stores may actually be building it in. That's because only a small percentage of businesses are even paying gross receipts tax in the first place.
We do have an exclusion. The first $1 million of revenues is excluded from gross receipts tax assessments. So there's a large group of mom and pop shops that never pay any gross receipts.
Carter says there are more than 70,000 businesses licensed in Delaware. Fewer than 8,000 pay any gross receipts tax at all, and fewer than 1,000 pay more than $1,000 a year in it. While at a locally owned and operated business, the tax may be factored into an item's price. The impact of gross receipts tax plays out differently at national and regional chains versus local stores. Take, for example, Best Buy. The big box store, like many others, sets its prices nationally. Take a $1,000 television. It's $1,000 on the shelf in Delaware, Maryland, wherever. If Best Buy could hide the gross receipts tax in the price, in Delaware the TV would cost a little bit more on the shelf, maybe $1,005. But it doesn't. In Maryland, you'll pay $1,060 all told for the television. That $60 covers Maryland sales tax. You still just pay $1,000 in Delaware. That means Best Buy has to pay the gross receipts tax it owes out of that. So it has not been hidden and passed on to you. Hocker says the prices of many items in his store are set before they get to him. They can't build the gross receipts tax in on those, but he says it is there on other items, like in the meat section. The gross receipts tax isn't much. It ranges from industry to industry, but it's generally between 1/5 and 4/5%. Far, far less than the 6% sales tax in Maryland. But Hocker says 1%, 50%, it doesn't matter.
When you hide anything from any consumer from what they're paying, it's not a fair tax.
14.12 is your change?
So he'll keep pushing to have the gross receipts tax eliminated in the first state. Mike Chesney, WBOC News.
And there is another thing that makes it tough to tell how gross receipts tax might be affecting the price you pay for an item. The tax is levied at multiple levels of the retail process, including to the wholesalers selling the items at the business that sells them to you, and that could be factored into your final price. Delaware is one of 5 states that don't have a statewide sales tax, but it is the only one of those that has a gross receipts tax. It's Delaware's 5th largest revenue source, accounting for more than $225 million in 2013.